All right, so planting a magnolia tree down in Toronto. For those of you who might have never planted a tree before, this is just a little lesson on, how to do it. So I've already removed the area, the plants that were in the area where we're going to put the tree. And so now it's just a question of digging the hole. First thing you do is check the size of your pot. They say twice as wide as the pot. So you want to moat around the outside of the pot. And you'll see how that works out in a second. By the way, I already did call before I dug, so that's step one. Make sure you're not going to hit any gas lines or hydro lines. So the lower you get, usually the worse the soil becomes. It's getting into clay down there. And a new tree, well, very few plants do well in clay. So you can see the more red soil is the clay. So the idea is to give the new tree its like a kickstarter in really high quality soil, so that for the first couple of years its roots can get the nutrients it needs to establish itself, and then usually after that the soil quality isn't so, it still matters, but it's not so critical. So here's some clay right there. And that's pretty much just straight up clay. And that's the stuff this is a part of the point of digging a deep hole, is to remove some of that and replace it with more nutrient rich soil. So, how deep to go? So what you're aiming for is, in the end, a level of the root base here at the top of the pot where you're below the natural height of the garden or of the lawn by a good 5 to 10 centimeters. So here we're still about even, and we want to be a little lower, not too low, but just about 5 to 10 centimeters or so that when you water it, you've got a moat around it, a natural moat, and the water doesn't fall off or run away. It penetrates into the root ball. So I'll take a little more soil out here, but actually a lot of this soil is already quite soft. So the last stage in the digging is, rather than dig and remove all the soil and leave a very hard base at the bottom, you mix it up so that the soil becomes, you know, very pliable like that. And then, because a lot of this is clay, we're going to throw in some nutrient-rich compost. So this is just a basic triple mix, which you can buy at a garden store. There was a compost day in the community, so I got a couple wheelbarrows. So you throw a couple of shovelfuls of that in, and magnolias happen to be acid loving. They prefer acidic soil. So, you know, there are acidifiers which you can actually pour in that are garden acidifiers or soil acidifiers, but another trick is you can just throw some pine mulch in, or cedar, any kind of fir tree mulch, and that is acidic as well. So it'll kind of mix in and penetrate with the rest of the dirt and slowly release over time. It helps give, again, just trying to give the tree a starter pack of good nutrients. So here's I'm no professional, but here's a technique my dad taught me on how to make sure that the whole root ball is cleanly and perfectly covered by dirt, and there are no big air pockets that kind of that make a struggle for the roots to grow out and reach the nutrient-rich soil. So dump a whole lot of water in here. So this is most of a watering can. So you see, I dug down to roughly the level I wanted, and then mixed the soil up down below, and then added some compost or triple mix, and then added some of the, in this case it's a magnolia, so to acidify the soil, add some mulch from a fir tree. And now we're going to mix those three parts together. So this is still not as wet as it needs to be. So we'll throw some more water in there. And now you can see kind of what we're going for is you're basically making a kind of oatmeal, which has a couple of purposes. One is it gives the plant its first real deep watering. The most common thing that'll kill a plant in its first year, or kill a tree especially, is lack of water. So you really want to start it off with really, really deep watering that'll last a few days before you start doing your routine watering. So because it's a shock to the plant to go from the pot to the garden. So that's a good consistency, but it's also not quite high enough yet, so we kind of rinse and repeat here, do the same thing. So we're putting some of the lower quality soil back in. This is just the standard garden soil that came out of the garden. And again, it's just the exact same thing. A little bit of the mulch. And you know, maybe a half and half ratio, depending on how bad the soil is and how much clay is in there. You can even just get some basic garden soil. Doesn't have to be the triple mix as one of the parts. So now we're trying to make the same consistency. So for this size pot, 2 watering cans full should do it. And it's just digging back down. Get a little more water in there. Okay. So we've basically almost filled the hole back up, but because it's so soft, because of the water, the plant we can now push down in. So let's see how that works. To pull the plant out, if it's nicely root bound, so the roots have grown all the way out to the edge of the pot, you should be able to pull it out. So there are the roots. And it looks like a bit of mold. Take that off. And it's a good idea to loosen them up, but not too much. Otherwise you might, the plant itself might come away from the soil, which is definitely a bad thing to happen. If you can't get the pot away from the plant root ball, then you would cut with an X-Acto blade, just slits along very carefully along the edge, or use a pair of scissors, and then peel the pot away if it's one of these plastic pots. So now you kind of pick your orientation, decide roughly how you want it to sit, and this is how the oatmeal works. Is you then push it down to the exact level and position you're going for. And because it's so wet, it packs in against the root ball, and it, like I said, it provides that early water, and it means you can get it exactly where you want it to be, and make sure there are no air pockets around as you're filling it back in. So now you can see we're again about 10 centimeters below the level of the garden. So when you come in and do your daily watering over the hot summer, as you water, the water will collect around the base of the plant here. But we're also going to kind of build a moat with this excess soil. And this moat, again, purpose is to just contain the water so it doesn't run away from the roots. So very important here, as you're building your moat, don't let the soil kind of come in and bury the root ball. The height of the roots, as exactly where they've touched the base of the trunk, this should be exposed to the surface. Magnolias in particular don't like to have their trunks buried, but most trees, it's true, in general are not very happy with that arrangement. So again, to just kind of give the plant its best shot at its first year, make sure that the root ball is exposed where the trunk meets the root. But build up. And pack down that outer moat. And to be honest, this is a little loose. I think I would have liked to have just a little more dirt and compost in there. It's a little muddy, but it'll be fine. If I could go back and do it again, I would have just added a little bit more compost so it absorbs it. It absorbs the water a little bit, so it's not quite so soupy. So we're almost done here, and you know, you could leave it like that and it would probably do all right, but just as an added measure of care, sort that guy out. When you do have the soup, the nice thing is with a foot you can actually adjust that position, walk out and take a look at it and make sure it's straight. So let's say we're happy with that. We're going to top dress around the entire root ball with, you know, any kind of garden mulch. Pine and cedars are good, or coconut, because they're not very attractive to termites. So you don't want to go attracting those to your house. But the purpose of the mulch, it looks nice, that's one thing, but the actual purpose is again to retain moisture. So, and it also does keep down weeds, which will be competing for the nutrients. So, you know, 3 or 4 centimeter coating, and over the hot summer days when you water, the mulch will help to keep that water in the soil, and it will prevent it from evaporating. And those change in temperatures, where if you ever let this delicate root ball dry right out, you know, it can really damage or kill the plant pretty quickly, especially when it's in these sort of garden center soils, which are very high in this kind of compost and peat. So when they dry out, I mean, it's hard to get them rehydrated. And I think that's it. So here's our tree, nicely planted. For care from now on, because that root base is now surrounded by that soupy soil mixture, for the next couple of days it's okay not to bother watering. But then on a magnolia especially, for the rest of the summer, whether it's a rainy day or a dry day or a hot day or whatever, I normally would just come out and put, you know, not this big, but about the size of a small saucepan of water, and just dump it on the root base in the morning so that it can drink it up during the day. And often when it rains, you know, you might get a rain, but it only really soaks down an inch or two, you know, 10-15 centimeters into the soil, and that doesn't get down. You saw how deep the pot was. So a lot of rains don't get actually all the way down. So really, hydration, after you've got it planted and you've got good soil and you've got the mulch, hydration is the biggest concern over the first year. So definitely over the first year, water it daily, I would say, with a small saucepan, you know, like this, just one a day, so you get in the habit. And then in year 2, I tend to come out when the sun starts beating down, or if I notice it hasn't rained in a couple of weeks, maybe in a week, I'll get one of these and I'll just fill it right up and dump the whole thing on the tree. And that's in year 2, just because, you know, it still is a sort of delicate year. By year 3 or so, most of these guys are fine. They're not going to need to have maybe ever be watered, but you know, they always appreciate it, but it's not going to be probably a make or break on their survival. Hope you enjoyed the planting of a magnolia tree, and I encourage you to plant your own one day.